First off, thank you guys for coming out this afternoon. But our thoughts and prayers continue to be with those that are affected by the sudden loss of Coach Leach. Obviously, a amazing coach and amazing person, and our thoughts and prayers continue to be with all those people, the Mississippi State community, family, and friends as we move forward. All that being said, it's been a good couple weeks of recruiting on the road. Been pleased with a lot of these young high school and junior college guys that we were able to get commitments from. Obviously, we got to get to signing day next Wednesday, which is a key deal. We'll continue to explore the transfer portal. Roster management's the buzzword we've used the last few years now, and it continues to be a discussion. I'm pleased with so many of our young men that have decided to come back. And with that being said, right, everybody says, "Man, Coach, you've done the program's done a nice job of keeping guys in that we want to keep." That doesn't mean there won't be transition, maybe after the bowl game or in the spring. That's the nature of it. You're still only allotted 85 scholarships, and I'm sure we'll be looking back and saying, okay, which guys that may feel they may have better options somewhere else, whatever that may look like. So that's one of those things that as it plays itself out. So if there are some of our guys on the roster decide to enter the transfer portal after the game, I completely understand that. But that's the nature of college football, and it's no longer what you do or how you do it. It's what's the best options for these student athletes moving forward. But excited to delve into a little bit of Utah State, back off the road, and we had a good practice this afternoon, competitive practice. Still more so focused on just getting back in and getting our legs back underneath us and getting a good sweat. But Utah State, obviously, as we know, the year before won the conference. And like I've said, I know Blake Anderson pretty well, and he's a fantastic coach. So they're going to be ready, but we're excited about the matchup in Dallas. Obviously, one day at a time in our preparation as we continue to move forward.
So you talk about going on the road recruiting, but how much of this time is spent recruiting your own players again?
Yeah, I think more than anything, I've always said this all along, and we've talked about culture, right? And I always said the culture, right? It's great. We can talk about all we want, but it's got to be reflective in wins and losses. But I think when you talk about the culture and the relationship, that's all goes hand in hand. So the relationships with these current student athletes, they understand, one, the future's pretty darn bright here, and we've got high expectations for ourselves. And part of that is just having those discussions. Is it a fit for you to come back? Is it that makes sense for you to maybe go to the NFL or find another place to play? And we have those heart-to-heart felts. Sit down, eye-to-eye, man-to-man, and say, okay, what's the best situation? And is it ever easy? No, but I always feel like I should be transparent and upfront with our guys. And when the conversations are all said and done, you feel comfortable. So, whether we call it recruiter or not, I just continue to talk about, okay, where's our relationship? Where do we think this thing's going? And what's in the best interest of both parties?
What are you, when you're out there on the road and you're talking to these kids, whether it's transfers, JUCOs, high schoolers, what would you say your pitch is? What are you telling these kids?
Yeah, Memphis is still a national brand, and I get the record isn't what we want it to be, but it's still, people are excited about, oh man, you guys are legit, you guys have done it, we've been able to follow it, and there's so many things to sell. And I do think, right, what gives me an advantage over a lot of these other coaches is I've been here and going year 8, and I do think that's important because a lot of these, the question is, well, what is it like? I know a lot about this program, this university, so I can sit there and talk about majors. I can sit there and talk about internship opportunities. I can talk about the guys we've had in the league. I can talk about the facilities, what our plans are, So you start to do all that, and it's like, man, I feel like I'd be giving tour guides on campus at some point, for the admissions department. But we have so many things to sell, and that's one of those unique things is it's not just necessarily like a recruiting sales pitch. Like, okay, what are your interests? What are you thinking? Okay, here's what we have to offer. And it, like I always said, the place, the city itself sells itself. But I feel really knowledgeable about everything that we, as a football program, the city, the university, have to offer. So going out there's a lot of interest, which is a lot of fun, and it's exciting that buzz is still there.
Ryan, over the last few years, they've tweaked the signing period schedule. They added the December. You have the transfer portal now open for when it's open. You're getting ready for a bowl game. Is this okay? If you were the czar, would you change around the schedule of how to do things?
Yeah. I'll say this, and I jokingly say no one ever wants to hear a head coach complain. I've had a lot of head coaches I don't know who else to call a complaint to, but man, this is tiresome because you may be preparing for a bowl. You may be trying to recruit your own roster. You may be trying to recruit high school guys. You may be trying to recruit JUCO, transfer, and you're pulled in so many different directions. Man, where do you start? And really where it's at a disadvantage is some of these new head coaches, right? I have a couple friends that got head coaching jobs for the first time, and they're like, should I stay in my office? And one guy said, hey, I spent my first 24 hours on the job just talking to boosters about NIL money, because how am I supposed to know what I can use in recruiting? I mean, it's such a unique deal. I do like the 2 signing days, right? It's amazing. That February one, right, I'm sure we'll sign 1 or 2 guys, but like it's almost become so obsolete because I don't even know if this one's considered an early one now. This is the main one. I think, I don't want to throw out a wrong figure, but I'd say 90% of our class will be signed by next Wednesday. It's unique, though. We always said it, right, with this transfer portal. You hear about college coaches being on other college campuses. It's just a different world. And, obviously, those communications, it's a little bit different. What's a transfer looking for as opposed to a 17-year-old high school student? But is there a right answer? I don't know. And, whether it's the czar, we know we've got a new NCAA president coming in at some point. At some point, it's going to have to be a little bit more honed down, because I'm not sure if this is sustainable the way it is right now. It's great and it's fun, but man, we're hitting it, getting it, and we'll just see what happens. But I'm trying to take full advantage of it, and no turning back right now. But we'll see. I think over time there'll be enough where they're going to try to regulate it as much as they can. The transfer window has certainly helped, but it's just a unique deal.
With these official visits the last few weeks, how has it been just kind of seeing the excitement from the recruits and the players? You talk about itself, but just what impression are you getting from them when they're coming here and they're seeing like, okay, we see what you're selling and it's starting to work a little bit?
Yeah, that's been huge, Evan. I mean, I always say this, like, Memphis in its essence is still a hidden gem, because people get here like, oh man, coach, you weren't kidding. Like, you have all this. Like, this is great. What the academics? The highest graduation rate in conference back to back years. Wow, the stadium looks beautiful at night. Look at this locker room. Look at the academic support. Look at these internship opportunities. Now all of a sudden it's like, and you talk to them like, this starts to check a lot of boxes for a lot of our recruits. And it's been a lot of fun, because as we go along, and like we always say, it's on paper, but back-to-back best recruiting class in program history. Again, on paper, it looks like we're going to maybe top that, which is great. But you got to remember, again, like I always say, those are the classes moving forward. That's what gives me such excitement about. Look, we're focused on the bowl game, but like, man, 2023 and beyond, because we're building this thing the right way, right? It's like looking at, I hate to say this, Evan, but it's like free agency and draft picks. Like, okay, we loaded up on some good draft picks over the years, added some free agents, kept the right culture in place. Now it's time to go make a run at this thing. But it's fun, and it's good to see the excitement in the recruits as well.
I may have asked this before, but I mean, with your experience in the NFL, does it kind of feel more similar to it now because of the portal? Because obviously, drafting free agency, I mean, you're familiar with that world a little bit. So is it kind of similar in some way as far as just trying to handle or deal with them that way?
Absolutely. And then, what I think, Evan, is you sit there and you look at, you keep jokingly, I used to keep, I don't have it on me now, I roster in the back of my pocket, because, okay, what's going to happen if this piece moves there? Because it's constantly ever-changing parts. And that was a little bit of the NFL, right? You always had the board, right? You had your draft board, which was our high school recruits. Now it's, okay, who are the guys in the portal? Where do we need to add? Okay, what happens if we lose this guy, and not in free agency, but if we lose this guy to the transfer portal, okay, where do we need to add? What's the next piece? And so that has given me a little help in the background of it. And so there's some of that commonality with, okay, the way you got to operate. And also some of the conversations. If you're talking to a 21-year-old that's transferring, it's a little bit different than going into the home of a 17-year-old. And so sometimes those conversations, okay, what exactly are you looking for? Oh, you've already graduated. You want to work on your master's degree, or hey, you just want to get another degree, but the biggest thing is trying to get you in the NFL. So those are those conversations, but it's unique because there are some similarities between that and the NFL.
What does a win in this game, what does a win in this game potentially do going to the offseason? Then I'm curious, last year when the game gets canceled, does that kind of set a weird tone for the offseason after that?
Yeah, so let's start with that one first. Last year, the 23 hours before kickoff, the cancellation, that was unique, and that was one of those things you're just like, man, unsatisfied feeling, because you wanted to go out and get a bowl win. And I can't sit there and say we would have won that game. They credit us as bowl champions. I'm not wearing a Hawaii Bowl ring. The trophy's upstairs, which is great, but, and then going into this game, getting a bowl win is huge for the momentum in the offseason. Right, one, it just sets the tempo, the standards of, okay, here we go. The guys will have some downtime, come back in January. But I think it's important, right? It's great to be going to 9 straight bowl games. It's even sweeter when you start winning 9 straight bowl games. And so, obviously we go back a couple years when we finally got that bowl over that hump, got a bowl win last year. I'm not going to count it as a bowl win, whatever it is. And then this year having that opportunity. But I think those things are always huge going into it, and then like we always talk about, there's going to be some roster turnover too. So it's next year, 2023 is a whole new year, right? After we knock on wood, if we have the opportunity to win this bowl game, once we get back at workouts, there'll be zero talk of it. It just leaves a positive taste in the downtime.
Are you targeting any sort of specific position groups in terms of the transfer portal guy? When you're looking for some, immediate improvements next season?
The best available players. It's we feel comfortable at certain positions, but I'll go with this. Like last year, we felt really good about the D-line depth, going into the off season, right? And then after spring, really, and then we had a young man transfer right before spring practice, and then we had a few that didn't like where they were on the depth chart that transferred in August, and so all of a sudden you're like, man, we got good depth here. What happened to it? And so I think you want to add to the trenches because you can have those bodies, right? And there'll be another wave once the portal goes after bowl games, when spring ball comes. So just because, keeping a lot of the guys intact right now. And it's great to have some of those guys returning that had the ability to go in the portal. Those are the key ones. And there will be some guys that will, inevitably leave at some point. But I think I feel pretty comfortable at the quarterback position. You think you feel comfortable at certain spots, but look, you're always looking to add players because if you feel like, hey, this guy may be an addition to our roster and make us better, you're going to have to look at that. And sometimes when you do that, another guy may say, well, I know why Coach bought this guy, and maybe it's best for me to go find another place. And sometimes you may have a guy that's a starter that say, hey, I like the opportunity somewhere else as well.
So it's a two-way street, though, right? It's a two-way street. You're looking to always improve that roster. For all coaches around the country, they may say, I can get this guy, but I only have 85 scholarships, so I may kind of nudge that guy out the door.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's that fine line. Obviously the guys you recruit you want to keep and what you're doing, but there is that, right? Everybody's always looking, how do you make your roster better? And once you always hear about, and it's all over the country, you hear about coaches cutting guys. Well, we're not doing that, and we're just going to go in there but we understand that there is a roster limit, and if all of a sudden we look back and the roster's a little overfilled, and then maybe a guy that says, you know what, Coach, I know I'm not going to play here, or maybe another guy that says, hey, the opportunity for me at another place. And I always go back to this, like over the last 3 years since I've been the head coach, since this transfer portal, even before the portal came on and guys were able to leave, right? And we lost a guy early in my spring after my first year as head coach. We never discuss. I've never come to you guys and said I removed a guy from the team. I've never said I've thrown a guy off the team, because if a young man just says I'm going in the portal, that's great. I don't need to come out and bash a young man saying, oh, he got disciplinary reasons, that's why we got rid of him. Just they can go in the portal, they can go on social media before I even have a chance to maybe sit down with you guys, and so be it, and that's okay. But it's so interesting, right? Over all the years, well, man, that guy was thrown off that team. Why would I want him now? And now that's just the nature of it. But I always think that's unique. That's one of those things that's kind of gotten lost over the last 3 years.
Ryan, you talk a lot about culture, and you mentioned to Mark about best football player. Is things like being from a winning program or a solid program, is that important to you when you look in the transfer portal?
Well, I do think that's important, right? Obviously you find guys in the portal for a variety of reasons, right? You look at a kid like Davion Ross, who we bought in last year from Eastern Kentucky, one of the conference players of the year, fantastic guy that played at FCS and said, Coach, my dream was to always play major Division I football. And that was one of the reasons why he went in the portal. You find guys from SEC schools. Let's give Chris Howard a perfect example, right? He got beat out at Florida and wanted the opportunity to be the starting kicker. It worked out really well for him to come to the University of Florida to Memphis. So you look at that, whether the program or not is a winning program or not, I think you more look at the individual and their makeup, right? Is it a guy that's just chasing NIL money that maybe is somebody you don't want, or is it a guy that's maybe looking for a better opportunity for themselves? And that's more than anything when we talk about, will this guy fit in the locker room? There's been a lot of good players out there that reach out to us in the portal and say, I want to come play there. Well, hold on a second. I called their coach. Yep, appreciate it. I wish you the best somewhere else. And so that's part of making those connections. You don't want to just take guys blindly, because sometimes they're going in there for a reason, and maybe they were dismissed at the previous place. We didn't know. Maybe the previous coach said, hey, he couldn't stay awake in meetings, so we asked him to leave. So you kind of look at those things, and that's the nature of it. And sadly, when you look at this thing, there's going to be a lot of young men that are going to be left in the portal without finding homes. And we try to educate our guys, good, bad, and indifferent, about the nature of it.
How easy is it to sniff out guys that are just after cash now?
Usually when it's the question within the first minute, It was different, right? I was never along those days when, and you hear about in the 60s where guys were, driving around getting cars and all that stuff and the death penalty. But different day and age now because, 10 years ago, if a guy asked you for money and said, hey, what can you do for me? Great education, internship opportunities, great city, chance to be coached by me. Now it's, if they're asking about it pretty quickly, it's generally a red flag to me as well, though, because we're not going to be one of those programs that's going to just go try to recruit with NIL money. Is it necessary? Is it help? Sure, but that's, we've got enough opportunities for our guys to have success on and off the field without having that be the bargaining chip. But if it does come up, it's usually kind of, okay, let's pump the brakes on this young man.
Ryan, what is your take now on Tennessee allowing NIL money for high school kids who can conceivably take a pay cut when they go to college?
It's a unique deal. I will always be in favor of what's best for the student athlete, no matter where they're at, whether it's high school, middle school, which is probably going to get that down to college football, to the NFL. So anytime that these individuals have a chance to benefit themselves, so be it. And so, it is unique. I did hear about the state passing that. That high school students, I guess, in the state. I don't know the exact rules, so I don't want to get into the jargon of what that exactly looks like and means. But it is unique, and it's going to make it a little bit different, right? I always say this: there's a different day and age. This next year will be my 25th year coaching, and when you coach Division III football to start your career, there's no NIL money. These guys are paying money to come play for you and get an education. And it's a little bit different. And even when you started coaching Division I football a long time ago, you had a guy for 4 or 5 years, and this is the way we do things. This is our approach. This is the way we run practice. This is the way we do things. And if you don't like it, you're probably done playing college football. And so most of the men back then, you just felt like, okay, you could build some consistency. It's that, and I talked about this, last offseason, the 33 to 40% roster turnover, going back to that. And I don't know if we're going to create more of that by some of these opportunities financially in high school. Are more and more people, going back to Matt's question, going to be chasing just that money. So we'll see. It'll be unique.
How concerning is it, like, if you're grabbing a guy in the transfer portal who left because of his spot on the depth chart, there's no guarantee he's going to come in your program and start. So is it in the back of your mind where if we grab this guy, he might leave if he's not where he wants to be? Like, how do you find that balance?
Yeah, that's a good, good issue to have, right? First off, I will never take a kid in the portal without watching their film. Even some of these guys have limited film at a place, right? You sit there and then you're making calls. Okay, why is this guy leaving? Because, hey, it's a major university that plays, top 10 team in the college, and they got some really good depth there and some first-round picks, and this guy knows he's not going to play. But, Coach, we think he could be a big benefit for you. Okay, great. He's a great young man, has a 3.6 GPA. Okay, perfect. Maybe that's the right fit. If the guy's like, nah, man, the kid quit early on, he never cared, he doesn't compete, then you're like, hey, let's shy away from that. So that's one of the unique things. But you also have to look at and understand every story is unique to each individual. They have made the rule that you're technically not supposed to be able to transfer twice without having to sit out a year, unless you go down to a division or you're a graduate. So once you're a postgraduate, you can transfer as many times as you want. We had an individual that left here that ended up actually on his 5th college. And we try to show our guys the pros and cons of what happens when you bounce around. I actually have NFL head coaches that say, you can quote me on this and what this looks like if guys continue to transfer, that maybe not what the NFL is looking for too, because if they're bouncing, sometimes it's where they're getting from, where they're running from.
Do you anticipate making any changes to your staff this offseason?
Yeah, so what I told our staff, I was very transparent, like every year. I don't ever want to rush anything. We did go back to the question, like to Greg's question. I mean, it's constant. Like, so there's not I haven't had time to sit back and say, okay, what do I want like this thing to look like moving forward? You always have thoughts and ideas throughout the season, and shame on me if I don't, right? Okay, this is an area we need to look at and improve upon. But I told our staff, I said, guys, we're going to get through the bowl game, and then I'm going to sit back and figure out what's best thing moving forward. And it's with everything, right? I mean, how are we going to do it? Is there improvement that can be made in nutrition? Is there improvement that can be made in this segment of offense, this segment of defense, this segment of especially? So you sit back and look at it. I don't ever want to rush those things, because ultimately, right, those are the guys that pour in our staff, whatever it looks like, into our people every single day, right? Is there something in the facilities-wise that, hey, we got to change this? Let me sit back after a bowl game, because there hasn't been a whole lot of time, to be honest with you, to, okay, I got to do this. I wouldn't even know where you'd have time to even sometimes even have those in-depth conversations that need to progress. And I meet with every staff member after the season and go through the good and the bad.
And then what the faith administration has shown in you, what does that mean to you?
Oh, it's great. I mean, look, like I've said all along, Laird Veach hired me, and went through an extensive interview process with other, individuals as well. And, Jeff Crane, and, the ability to sit down with the president and some of these people. It's huge because they know what it looks like. And what I appreciate is they understand we're trying to do it the right way. And has it been perfect? No. Like I said, I've been far from perfect as a head coach. I've got so many things I need to improve upon that our program needs to get better at. Ultimately, it comes down to winning. I get that. But they see the things, the way recruiting is going, the way the graduation is, the way some of these games ended, right? I go back and I don't, this is not for quote material, but like maybe if the Houston game ended a little bit different, maybe it's a different story this season. But that's neither here nor there. And I think you come out and you watch practice, you watch it, and going back to that culture deal, like no one doubts that these kids don't play hard, right? Had we, gotten our teeth kicked in by SMU, maybe a different story, right? Maybe there's another individual standing here in front of you guys today, but the reality is the administration's been supportive all along. They believe in the way we're doing it. I'm aligned, in the vision and leadership with all those that are decision makers, and it's good because we sit down and talk and say, okay, here's some of the things that I need to work on and talk through, and it's great. And to be able to have that, a lot of athletic directors and head coaches and even presidents don't have those relationships. I think it's important for the head football coach to be aligned in the same page, and I think it'll make a huge difference for us moving forward. Like I've said all along, I plan to be here for a long time, but they also see the vision and the way it's going about. And ultimately, we got to win football games. I'm not oblivious to that, but excited and appreciative of the belief.
Seth, Caden, Jalen, and Jeff back. Speaking of recruiting your roster, one, since it's public now, how good is it having them back? Two, how does it help having them help maybe recruit some of the guys back? Because obviously they know what's coming back here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you talk to those guys, and they're not to look past this bowl, right? We're 100% focused on this bowl, but you sit there and talk to them like, Coach, man, we got a chance to be really good, especially if we clean up some of those small things, which shows leadership amongst those guys. But it's also you talked about the administration belief, like the belief in these guys have, right? Because, this is not about me, but the fact that, Caden could have gone somewhere else, Seth could have gone somewhere else, Jalen could have gone to the league. Like, you sit there and talk to them, and they're like, man, no, Coach, we believe in you. Like, you're doing it right. We've got to all be better, every single one of us. And that belief from the players is huge. But then also, hey, if a guy's thinking about maybe I should go over there, and they're, sometimes they're already having that conversation. No. You stay your butt here. We're going to go compete and do it the right way. And there's other guys that, hey, this guy's maybe thinking about going to the portal. They may say, why don't you go ahead and move on because you're not exactly what won the locker room. And I trust those type of young men that are our leaders that have done it and understand what we want this program to look like.
I'm sure most fans of this program aren't all that familiar with Utah State. What should they be looking for? What stands out from the tape?
Yeah, they play up-tempo offense. They started off the season 1-3 and then actually had a quarterback injury and have really done a fantastic job as the season went on. I mean, they're a team that they go fast, all right? And like I said, they won the conference championship last season. This year wasn't their best foot forward, just like ours. And they do a lot of good things. I mean, they're a team that's played very well in the Mountain West, and they're excited for them. This is a huge bowl game, just like it is for us. But we're going to get everything they have. And I know they've been preparing, and Coach Anderson does a fantastic job. He's always put together winning teams, winning programs. So for our fans, we know that, look, their offense is going to try to go fast and try to catch us off guard. And then, more so over these bowl preparations so much, and I'm not trying to deter from what Utah State is. They've got a fantastic deal. It goes back to us, right? Can we own the football? You go and watch, I guess there's some bowl games that started today, which I haven't even watched. Like, turnovers are always a factor in bowl games. Like, man, how'd that game get out of line? I didn't even get to see the end of the Miami UAB game, who won that, but like I was watching, there's a 4th-and-1 situation, like situational football. Did that coach cover that during the bowl prep where it shows up? So, look, we're going to get Utah State's best foot and excited about the challenge.
Ryan, one last thing for me. and you may have already addressed this in a past interview, but since they announced that officially in 24 they're going to a 12-team playoff, and you know now, as a group of 5 school, you are in a better situation to be a player if you can win your conference and obviously be the best. What does that mean now moving forward as being able to sell that to players to come here knowing that they can get there here?
Yeah, I think that's huge, right? Like if I'm recruiting a high school kid and he's being recruited by school X in the SEC, okay? I'll ask that young man, do you think that school has a chance to ever win the conference? Oh, heck no. Then no chance. Okay, do you think Memphis has a chance to win the conference? Oh, absolutely. Okay, so we have a chance to actually be in the college football playoff. Oh yeah, that's right. Now it clicks. No different with a transfer. Man, you know, I don't know about going to G5. How does it look? Well, guess what? We win our conference. We're playing that school you may have come from. Oh man, that would be sweet. You know, so now all of a sudden it's a buy-in, and then they understand that that opportunity is there for them. And obviously it's 2024, but you know, just like we know good and well, right? The winner of our conference has a chance to play a New Year's Six bowl game next year again, and but that's kind of what it is. But it's been a little bit easier to discuss with some of these recruits. Thank you, guys.